Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of the Commercial Real Estate 101 podcast. It's great to see you all this afternoon. It's really excited to host Julia Anderson today. We actually had a chance to connect a few weeks back for coffee. Just so happened that we have a mutual connection to another broker out of California. She made the introduction because we're both local to Louisville, and got to talking a little bit about the different things we do in business. And through that conversation, I thought there would be some value that could be exchanged just by having her come on and share some insights pertaining to the process of building systems for capital raisers and investors and that sort of thing. So,
Yep.
Julia, it's really nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, what we usually do when we first get started is we like to learn a little bit more about the person we're interviewing. So, if you don't mind kind of sharing a little bit about your backstory, I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So I am originally from Erie, Pennsylvania. I came to Louisville, Kentucky for school, go Cards, and I've been here ever since. So I actually started my career in a startup business, a restaurant and catering business in New Albany, Indiana. Helped grow that business to a $2.73 million valuation, but at the end of the day, the service industry really was not for me after 4 years. Definitely wasn't something that I saw myself doing forever. So it was time to pivot. I really didn't have any idea of what I wanted to pivot into. So it just so happened that my best friend was working for a multifamily syndication company, and they had an opening at the time. And I was pretty desperate to get out of the restaurant industry, not going to lie. So was taking anything and everything that I could get. So took a interview with them, got the job, and became investor relations for this multifamily syndication company. And I was on the raising capital side of things, and they're really struggling with their marketing. And that's what I went to school for. And that's what I did a lot of the heavy lifting for with the restaurant as well. So it's something that came very natural to me. And we were actually a part of a mastermind called Raise Masters that is focused on marketing for capital raising. So I learned a ton there. And basically at my time there, we did anything and everything under the sun when it came to marketing. We did an entire rebrand, which included a logo change, complete branding change, complete website rehaul, podcast launch. We did a lot of traveling to conferences. So we did a lot of marketing collateral for that, social media strategy, literally anything, you name it. And really where that took me was being on those calls with the Raise Masters people. A lot of people were struggling with their marketing, because if you're wanting to raise capital outside of your friends and family from strangers on the internet, it takes a heavy lift in marketing. That stamp of credibility on the internet really needs to be there in order to build that trust and build that nurture for them to, hand you over a pretty penny. So that's what came natural to me. And so started Capital Catalyst. We're a team of fractional CMOs who have years and years and years of experience in the real estate industry doing marketing. And we go into businesses, we really audit where you're at with your marketing, what your wants are, what your needs are, what your goals are, craft a 6-month marketing strategy around that, and then execute that strategy for you. So it's more done for you marketing rather than here are the tools, go do it yourself. Because we really want, people to focus on the real estate part of things when we focus on the marketing part of things.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. A great point, because, to your point, a lot of people who get into the real estate space, they may understand the mechanics of the process of getting the building or doing the executables on the operations side. But when it comes to raising capital, many people don't have that experience. And I will say, just through my limited experience raising capital, and mostly through friends and family, even that can be kind of challenging when you're getting started, because again, you have to build that credibility of having results before people really feel comfortable handing over a significant amount of money to you.
Right. And it's a lot of education too. I knew nothing about syndication or like I knew nothing about this world coming into it. And if you're not in real estate, you don't really understand it either. So it's a lot of heavy lifting there just to educate exactly, what they're investing in and what that means and what are the risks. So, everything that we do leads with education as well to, kind of break those barriers down a little bit more.
Definitely. So regarding the potential people that you work with, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges in particular that they face, more on a granular level? Because to your point, the marketing the marketing piece is obviously multifaceted. So I'm kind of curious, and obviously it obviously can be marketing, but there's also other systems in place that could potentially
Yeah.
benefit. So I'm kind of curious if you could share some insights there.
Yeah. Honestly, the number one thing that people struggle with, even if they've raised millions of dollars, they don't have a system for it. So a lot of people don't have the customer relationship management software too. They're either just kind of doing it by the bootstraps or doing it on Excel. They're texting people, which I absolutely admire because that takes a lot of time and a lot of attention. I've literally met someone who wrote all of her leads and like emails and all the information on a notebook, and that's how she raised millions of dollars. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. But like, a lot of people don't have the time to do that. So the systems, when it comes to the CRM, is really where I see a lot of people lacking. They either have it and they're just constantly working on it, and it's not really working for them. They're just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping that it sticks. But when we come in and we put their CRM together with the email marketing, with the lead scoring, the benefits that they get from especially the lead scoring part of it is astronomical, because that's how you know that a lead is hot, that a lead is downloading the education that you've provided them, that they're watching your podcast, that they're looking at your YouTube video, right? So when they're doing all these activities, we set it up to where you get an email that, hey, this person is checking out all your stuff. This is a great time to, text them and say, hey, how did you like that educational piece that I wrote? Do you have any questions about it? So that's like one of the systems that we put within a system, but just knowing those little details about how your target audience is consuming your information and when they're consuming the information is really valuable to them, because they can get them while they're hot, essentially.
Exactly. So you're essentially trying to set them up so that they have an automated system whereby the potential people that they're going to be raising money from are interacted with on a regular basis. They have constant touch points, whether that's sending emails, whether that's, queuing up posts to go out and seeing who engages with them.
Yep.
And I'm sure there's different systems out there to be able to track all that data, and it filters through the same CRM system. And based on that information you have available to you, you can prioritize people that you're ultimately trying to talk to be able to raise capital.
Yep. And another piece is the social media piece, because a lot of people find that, very daunting, because it definitely is. It's always changing. It's, open to the public. It's, if you put it on the internet, it's going to be there forever. And a lot of people are scared of that. And so it's kind of also breaking down the barriers to just letting them know that if you do put yourself out there and you share your stories and you share your experience, other people out there will relate to you. Like you don't have, you have a specific story, and that's what makes you unique, and that's what makes people trust you and like you and invest with you. But other people are going through the same struggles, right? So there's always a benefit to putting yourself out there. I know I had the same, before I started posting on social media, I was like, this is, terrifying. It's like, I have other people that, maybe I'm going to get judged. Like maybe people like will understand, maybe people will hate me. There's like so many things that go through your head. But I really just try and tell people that if you're authentic and you're yourself, and you really go back to the stories that you have and just share those with people, people will cling on to that. People will love that, and people will like you for it, and they'll, ask you more questions. And that's how you build relationships. And that's the whole basis of this industry, and how you get people to invest with you is just relationships. And that goes, and you already know that, like everyone already understands that, like the way you acquire a building is very much similar to how you acquire investors. You build, it all starts with building those relationships, with brokerages and brokers, and, vetting these people and showing the risks and looking at the deal and doing your due diligence. Like that's very much the same as it is with investors as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And, to your point, I think that the importance of creating some form of medium that you can connect with people on. So
Yeah.
stuff like this, like podcasts and such. One thing I'm kind of curious about is, how often do you see that, people that you start working with that they don't have really any presence whatsoever,
Mhm.
and you
Yeah.
help them craft kind of a story behind what they're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, with that kickoff call, that's like an hour and 90, or that's 90 minutes that we do. So we ask them a ton of questions. So we really get down to the nitty gritty of why, who they were even before they started this. Why did they start this? What is their end goal, like outside of the business, like
Mhm.
personally? What is your story? Really, like, what is your hero's journey? Because we we decide their target audience based on that. So if there's a lot of these people that didn't really start in real estate, is what I'm finding. Were either doctors, or they were in IT sales, or they were in insurance sales, and they found this avenue for passive income, right, where they're broken out of that golden handcuffs, and they saw the light, and now they can spend more time with their family, and not have to be chained to that paycheck.
Mhm.
And so learning that story is how we craft like who your target audience is, and how we can share those pain points where other people will relate to you, and how, they'll get clinged on to your stories, and the things that you went through, because they're also actively going through those things, but you're on the other side of it. And so you're showing them, here's the solution, and I can help you, find that solution, and find the way and navigate through this weird real estate thing that we've got going on. But here are all the benefits, and here's how you can get out of those golden handcuffs, just like I did. So yeah, we're really like asking the questions to get down to beyond the real estate piece of it, beyond like the investment strategy, because it's really not about that. It's more about what your hero's journey is, and what the pain points are, and how you overcame them.
Yeah, because that's what drives people to you
Yeah.
and connects them with you to a point where they decide to invest. Because two people can have the same type of investment, but if you have a connection with someone over another person, obviously it's going to increase your likelihood of actually working with them versus the other. So,
Yeah.
prioritizing and making sure that the importance of this, of your strategy is that you're focused in on trying to provide reasons why people should work with you, and really just people just get to know you. I feel like, with the stuff that I've done for a while, I run into people all the time that I've never met before, but for whatever reason they saw a video of mine, or they saw an interview and they enjoyed it, and then I run into them somewhere and they're like, hey, I've been following you, or I saw an interview that you did, and it immediately creates that
Yeah.
lowering of the barriers.
Exactly.
So I think some people underestimate the importance of building a personal brand like that,
Yeah.
and it's obviously compelling, in particular when you're trying to raise money to do real estate deals.
Right.
So
Yeah. Exactly. You nailed
yeah.
it.
So one of the curious things are, do you typically just focus on the multifamily space, or are you also working with other people who have been in other markets, and also other property types?
Yeah, we work among the majority of asset classes. We work with multifamily. We've worked with hotels, hospitality, industrial, retail, oil and gas. So yeah, we can really work with anyone. We focus mostly on commercial real estate, rather than single family. However, we can still work with single family. But yeah, and we can work with anyone in the United States. So it's
Yeah.
awesome.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting. Yeah, no, it's just good to know that perspective. So, somewhat to summarize, and also to kind of drive some points home, because really the audience members that are listening to this podcast are predominantly either they're in the commercial real estate space. It's
Yeah.
called Commercial Real Estate 101. We have a lot of people who are brokers that listen to the podcast. We have a lot of different real estate professionals, like attorneys and uh,
Mhm.
bankers and investors that listen to the podcast too. So I want to be able to make sure that they draw some value
Yeah.
as far as what they can maybe also implement in their own practice. And if there's any interest, obviously, to try to work with you too, they can definitely reach out. But just to kind of summarize, I mean, I think one of the biggest pain points that you see in people when they start to want to take that next step? Because usually in the evolution of investing, a lot of people start off with either their own capital or they have a few other people they get together and they go and help, buy a building. That's kind of where I was at this last year. I had a couple of buddies of mine that we got together and we, threw some money in the pot and bought some buildings. And granted, that's a good way to start out in their career. But if you want to eventually scale in size, at some point you're tapping out on your resources. Even if you make a lot of money, at some point that well is going to dry up. So you have to be able to go out there and try to find other people that ultimately want to invest in real estate, but maybe they don't have the time. They have disposable income and they want to be able to put that money to work somewhere. So, that's the starting point. So for those individuals who are at that point where they're like, okay, maybe I have some real estate experience. I'm a real estate investor myself, or I've been a broker for a while and I want to start investing in real estate and want to raise some money to do it. What is the foundational pieces that you would say, step 1, step 2, step 3, and then at the end, as far as, more in-depth, I guess, analysis. But I guess, what would you say is the first step from that realization to getting to where you want to be?
Yeah, I would definitely start with looking internally into what your story is, right? And what is the intersect between yourself and your target audience, and where does your story intersect? Because that is where you'll find your target audience, number one. So figuring out your target audience, I would say, is step number one, the demographics, psychographics, all that good stuff. And then number two, I would say, is building some type of CRM. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could just be, somewhere where you're going to host your leads, build in like a welcome series, build in some educational resources for them. So create some lead magnets, whether that's like a quick guide or a quick video of like, what is a syndication, or whatever you're doing, like break it down a little bit more for them. If it's people that, aren't in the real estate industry, especially. Add that into your welcome series. That's really all you need. But obviously that is where you're going to, the basis, your foundation of scaling your business, because that will grow and grow and grow. And then number 3 would be putting yourself out there in whatever way that is. Start building your personal brand. LinkedIn is obviously a great way to do that because of the, obviously these people need to be accredited. They need to have, some income that they need to invest with. So the professionals are all on there, and you can use Sales Navigator if you pay for that, or you have premium. It comes with your LinkedIn subscription. So you can find those leads by going into the filters and finding your target audience and building those lists and connecting with them. And then start posting, really, whatever it is. The best way to just start a personal brand is just to start. Like yes, you can have strategy, you can take so much time and, figure out your pillars and everything, but just start. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be pretty the first time. You're just going to keep getting better and better. So the sooner you start, the better it will be, when you actually have a strategy or you actually have a deal or something like that. So yeah, just putting yourself out there, start building those relationships, start telling people what you're doing about, the past experiences that you had. And, then from there, that's obviously, so that takes care of your middle of funnel, which is the CRM piece where you're nurturing those people. And then the personal brand will be your top of funnel. So you like have your funnel essentially from there, and, make sure that you have like some way to take calls or something to connect with people further, because absolutely you want to be able to take those people from LinkedIn and get them on a call to learn more about them and start building that relationship. So that's, kind of the basis of your funnel there. And then when you scale and you have a deal, you'll, build that into your CRM, and then you'll start, talking about it legally on LinkedIn and do all those good things. So that's a really good foundation to start, to answer your question of really, if you're going from friends and families to strangers, or even like your people that you went to school with, or like some other people in your industry, or some other people around your area, or your neighbors or something, like that is still a really good way to put out, what you're doing for other people to come and ask more questions about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can answer a lot. I'm sure you can answer a lot of these questions too for people, because as you start having these conversations, it's almost like a self-fulfilling type of prophecy, where they'll ask you certain questions and you say, oh well, maybe I should do this, right? Because you're getting the
Oh,
same questions over and
yep.
over again. It creates this flywheel where it's like, oh yeah, I'll just create some videos about that, or
Yeah.
hey, I'll do this. And
Yep. That is the best way to create content, is to really just like write down any question that anyone has when you're on a call, write it down, create a post about it. Like,
Mhm.
I know I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, what do I talk about? What content do I make? That's a great way to do that. Just start having conversations like with your mom, like with, your neighbor on the street, like literally anyone, because those questions that they have, there's so many more other people out there that have the same exact question. So it's like, just start somewhere.
Yeah. No, I agree. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I've been doing this series called Frequently Asked Questions series on every Monday, and it's like
Right.
we answer this question today, and over time it just builds up this repertoire where
Yeah.
people go down the rabbit hole, and they may see 5 of your videos, 6 of your videos, and then when you
Mm,
have a call with them, they're like, oh yeah, I feel like I already know you, and
right. Yep.
where do I end up signing for
Yeah.
whatever the
Exactly.
opportunity is. So
Exactly. And that's the point where we want to get them to be. Obviously that doesn't happen right away, but we
sure.
want to put so much content out there that people can consume, that by the time, you hop on a call with them, they're like just checking if you're like, a real person. And they're just like, they don't
Mhm.
really have many questions. They've kind of already made up, in their head, in their mind, that they're going to invest with you. Maybe they just have some questions about the actual opportunity, but yeah, we want to get them to a point where they're already like know and trust you, to where, it's an easy close essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super smart. So regarding, other resources and conferences and things like that that you recommend, I know you go to many conferences around the country to kind of constantly find inspiration and ways to continue to expand your knowledge base so you could provide a better service to your clients. What are some of the best resources and conferences out there that you've been to that you would recommend people look into?
I would say the best ever conference
Mm,
that is put on by Joe Fairless. It is in Utah, in
mhm.
like the early beginning of the year, I think March. That's a really good one. That has a like very much like high caliber of people. If you've been in the industry for a while, I'm sure you can meet a lot of really good people. And there are a lot of investors there too. A lot of investors don't go to these things. These are more like if you're wanting to find like a partner or something, or you're really like wanting to dig more into the market or like best practices on something, or you're struggling with something, like I would recommend to go to these. But if you're really looking for investors, I would, figure out who your target audience is and go to their conferences. You're going to be the only person there that's, doing real estate and raising capital. That's not even really like what they're talking about. But if you've been in that industry, you can go there and, still relate to these people and say, oh yeah, by the way, I have this real estate deal, it'll help reduce your taxes and, provide some cash flow for you or whatever it is. That's what we used to do for the multifamily syndication company that I was in. It's a really good strategy in order to get in front of your target audience. But also there's Race Fest is one that I really like. That's put on by Raise Masters. That is in Phoenix. However, there are a lot of these conferences that I went to a lot last year that aren't doing them a lot this year. So I'm kind of seeing a pattern of them not happening that much
Mm,
anymore, because it's expensive to put on. It's expensive for people to go. I've kind of seen the attendance of these conferences dwindle a little bit over the years. So maybe they'll switch virtually. Maybe they'll just do like smaller masterclass type things. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I think those are the top two for me. There's another one that I know isn't happening that I really liked last year, but it's not happening this year. So, but yeah, they have really good people that are on stages that, really know what they're doing, that share their experiences. And know the market, inside and out, like Marcus and Millichap, stuff like that. They're always there, and so yeah, I think those are the top two.
That's great. And do you, because you referenced some industry conferences. So I mean, the strategy that you all employed, I'm assuming would be going to like a medical conference or an
Right.
attorney conference or a
Yeah.
CPA conference or something like
Yeah.
that.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's
Yep.
smart. That's a
Yeah.
very unique idea. And we've tried to do something locally with different service providers that are kind of referral partners for us. So we engage with attorneys or bankers or CPAs, and it creates
Mhm.
this funnel where they can feed you opportunities for
Right.
brokerage. I know on our end, but obviously on the investing side, I didn't even think
Yeah.
about that, which is really smart.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. I mean,
Mhm.
for my business personally too, like I have so many referral partners, like a whole list, and so, and also going to, like, for example, I'm just thinking of the doctors because that's what I used to do, but you could go to, like, provide a lunch and learn for these types of people for your target audience, and always provide lunch because they'll actually come if you bring food. But yeah, putting on something like that for, like, because it'll be one to many, but that's such an engaged audience. Like, they're right in front of you. You can see them, you can meet them, you can talk to them later, put up a QR code so they can, get into your funnel, into your CRM. But lunch and learns is also a really good way to get in front of your target audience too.
That's a good one to one. Well, more one to many, sure, but to your
Yeah.
point, you can get on a one-to-one level with them and kind of
Yeah.
physically meet them. And some of those lunch and learns too. I mean, obviously, you could be presenting information about these opportunities, but then you can also have another person come in, maybe an attorney or a CPA, and do like a panel where you can add a ton of value, because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, if you have any legal questions, here's an attorney. If you
Right.
have any tax questions, here's a CPA, and they can kind of give you an idea of
Yeah.
why investing could be beneficial. So
Yeah.
it's a really smart strategy there for sure.
Definitely.
And then one last question before we open the Q&A. I kind of wanted to get your take on, any other topics or advice that you'd like to share with the audience that maybe I didn't cover during this interview.
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, I don't think so, but I guess there is something that I've, like, noticed, kind of a pattern, is that a lot of people go into, like, these mentorship groups,
Mm,
right? 'Cause a lot of those out there, and they're wonderful. That's how I learned a lot too, and it's great for networking and stuff. But I think a lot of people, how do I say it? I mean, there's definitely a lot of different ways that people can find value from it. But I feel like if you're in there for too long and you're kind of getting to a point where you have analysis paralysis, or
mm,
it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose a lot of the time too. If you're in one of those, just make sure you're executing and executing and executing, because I've seen people that are in mentorships and stuff like that have been in there for years and years and years, but they don't have anything to show for it, if that makes
mm,
sense.
yeah.
And then that's exactly why Capital Catalyst exists, is because we help you, have something to show for it, to, like, actually build the systems and the processes and everything. So I think that's just a pattern that I've noticed recently, to just make sure that you're getting as much as you can out of that, but actually executing.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, because to your point, there's some people that like the idea of it, but as
Mhm.
far as making the leap into trying to make something
Right.
happen, I've talked to many investors. I used to run a meetup here locally, and there would be people who would come to the meetup constantly. And there was a lot of people that came that were high level investors, and they would constantly be trading different properties. And there was other people that, really wanted to learn about the business, but they'd come for a year or 2 years or 3 years or however long, and then they still haven't done their first
Right.
deal.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
just like, obviously, it's great to be able to gain knowledge. It's great to be able to build your network through going to these events, and in some cases, like a mentorship program, probably paying a pretty penny to be involved in these types of organizations. But at the end of the day, if you're not getting the results you need, meaning that you're not taking the steps, because a lot of times too, mentorship is just, they're guiding you,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
ultimately you're the person who has to make
Yes.
you're the one who has to execute. No one is going to be able to hold your hand and say, yeah, you should buy this investment, and this is what you should pay for it, and then you should do this and that and that and that, and like push you into into doing what you need to do, you have to have a little bit of drive on your end to say, okay, well, I'm going to take this calculated risk. I feel like I've done the proper due diligence that I've needed to. Now it's time to just take the leap and make it happen.
Yep, exactly. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So that's some great advice. I've really appreciated the insights you shared thus far, Julia. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to open it up to Q&A. So if you guys are watching this, please type away. If you guys have any questions pertaining to the process of raising capital for investing, it is a unique topic and one that is very interesting on my end. I mean, like I said, I've raised a little bit of money through just friends and family recently, but we're going to be working at some point in the near future to try to build out a system to scale the capital raising effort so we can take down different projects. Because to kind of what we alluded to before, at some point, your income is capped, right? So at some point, you're gonna, even if you make a lot of money, you take that money and distribute it, and now it's not there anymore. And real estate's so capital intensive. It's not like some of these other industries where you run a business, you buy some equipment for 50 grand or whatever, and now it can turn into 100 grand by next year, right? So it's a different type of investment.
Yeah, definitely.
In the meantime, do you have any books or any other types of resources you would recommend?
I'm a huge book reader. I actually just finished The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham.
Mm-hmm.
It was really good. I actually listened to it. I highly recommend to actually get the physical book because it's very heavy, and it's basically, it gives you the questions in order to move your business forward, I think. So I think it can literally work for any business. It's kind of just like, get your head out of your butt and actually start doing and thinking and to kind of get out of that analysis paralysis as well. So that was a really good one that I just finished. I really like something that's I'm super passionate about that I didn't realize until I got into this industry. What is the investor relations piece, and really caring about your investors and how you can show them that you care while it being a system and a process and building that out. That's when I do build out, these marketing departments for people, that's a huge thing that I put an emphasis on. Like, how can we, systematize and automate quarterly check-ins and like updates, but also do like the personalized stuff, like really get to know them for who they are as people rather than just like a check, So for that, Brittany Hodak is really good. It's a book called Creating Superfans. It's not very specific to like real estate at all. But it just has really good tips and actionable things that you can do in order to really make sure that you're building out your investor process to create happy investors, and which is, happy investors are repeat investors. Happy investors are people that send you referrals, so, and ultimately will translate into more capital and more money. So I really like a lot of her stuff. She has some really good ideas, and it's like a really easy read, and she's pretty funny. So I just like her writing too.
Yeah, no, I need to check that out. I haven't had a chance to read that one. Yeah, that's great. And then, you mentioned Raise Masters, Hunter Thompson, I believe the gentleman who runs Raise Masters. I remember reading his book a while back, and it was very good. I mean, it kind of talked about a lot of the concepts you've just been describing, is kind of building that audience and creating that reach.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was one of the very first books that I read too when I was starting this, obviously, because I was in Raise Masters. And when I'm working with our CMOs too, that's something that I have them read as well, because it's like the entire basis of, everything that I learned as well. And it's all really good stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Julia, looks like you've answered all the questions. I really do appreciate your time, taking the time to me. It was great to be able to connect with you a few weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to staying in touch. And who knows where paths go. You never know who I'll be able to connect with you, and you'll be able to connect with other people in the network and stuff like that. So it was great to be able to connect. But if people want to learn more about you, your services, and just kind of just connect in general, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Definitely, that's the best way to reach me and to connect with me. I post every single day, Monday through Friday. So I post a lot of tips and tricks for marketing, for mostly social media stuff, for capital raising, email marketing. I try and kind of cover everything along the funnel, but post a lot of stuff there. So that's definitely the best way to reach me and to connect with me.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to include that in the show notes as well. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the description. And if you guys are listening to this in a podcast format, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please check the description. We'll be able to make sure that her information's in there so you guys can reach out. But Julia, really thank you again for being part of the podcast. It was great to have the conversation. I think that the audience did gain a lot of value from the discussion. Again, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It makes a huge impact on our ability to reach a broader audience. And if you guys are watching this on either podcast, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. It does make an impact in our reach, and we really do appreciate it. So thanks again so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.